I've said before, I don't buy digital games, so I was glad to be able to find a physical copy of Super Stardust Ultra VR available in the UK. Some have dismissed this game as just trying to cash in on the PSVR launch. Maybe it's because I'd never played any of the other versions, but I'm really enjoying it. This game is proof that VR games don't all have to be in first person, but we'll talk more about that in a bit. For this review, I want to focus on gameplay, graphics and immersion, and the new invasion mode added specifically for the VR edition. And then at the end I'll give some final thoughts. Now the twin stick shooter is an addictive genre, and Super Stardust is one of the best examples of how to do it right. When you're in the zone, switching your focus seamlessly between destroying and dodging enemies and asteroids, it's one of the more satisfying gaming experiences. The different weapons and power-ups break up what could have been monotonous to make this a not-so-basic twin-stick shooter. As you battle through the various planets, the difficulty ramps way up, so you're going to have to practice building up those arcade reflexes if you want to win the war. There are many different game modes besides the classic planet mode, and they all offer different challenges. The bomber mode, which is to see how many points you can rack up with no boost and no weapons other than bombs. There's also the impact mode, where you have no weapons, but you can use your boost to plow through enemies. And then one of my favorites is the blockade mode. Your ship leaves a trail of rocks behind it, causing you to have to more carefully plan the path that you want to take. There's enough here to enjoy without the new invasion mode even being included. We'll get into that in a minute. The graphics are just as beautiful as they've always been. It's just that now you have the added immersion made possible by VR. While you are completely immersed in the galaxy surrounding you, all the action takes place on one planet at a time, right in front of you. This has been described by some as kind of a God view, looking down on the world from afar instead of inhabiting it. In the classic modes, the action itself plays out more like a Super Stardust 3D, and that's actually perfect for this style of game. It's proof that developers don't have to make all virtual reality titles first person. Lucky's Tale on the Oculus Rift is the perfect example of how to develop a third-person action game for VR. Even the PlayStation 4 has Playroom VR, which includes Robot Rescue, which many have said would be one of PSVR's best games if it were actually a complete game and not just a small part of the Playroom experience. If you've never played these games in VR, you probably don't get what the big deal is, so I'll try to explain it. Most people see in stereo vision. This means that each of your eyes processes a slightly different view. Then your brain combines the two angles to enable you to fully perceive the world around you in all its three-dimensional glory. The biggest difference between viewing something on a flat screen and the way you see the real world is depth perception. When you look at 3D models on a flat screen, both of your eyes focus on the screen itself and your brain still processes it as a 2D image. When you're viewing the game through the VR headset, your eyes are receiving information independently so that what you perceive has a true depth of field. Rather than seeing a character on screen, it looks like the character is actually right in front of you. Now, because of this new technology, you can take any genre of game and put the player inside the world, hovering over the action with the ability to look around freely. Super Stardust Ultra VR's classic modes are the same as they've always been. It's just that VR allows for a whole new level of immersion. Invasion mode was created specifically for the VR version and wasn't made by the original developer Housemarque. Sony contracted a UK-based studio called D3T. Invasion mode puts you directly into the cockpit as you fight off the invasion in first person. This really has almost nothing to do with the original game. The gameplay is obviously completely different. There's no twin stick control here. It's purely a first-person cockpit game. It's a fun mode, though if you're prone to it, motion sickness could rear its ugly head. I enjoyed playing through Invasion. Head tracking is still my favorite way to aim. My only problem is the same problem I've been having with most VR games. The movement is too slow. I know it's designed that way for comfort, but I want my ship to move faster. I feel like I'm getting hit more than I should because I can't get the lead out. As I've mentioned before, my hope is that developers will begin to include some options when it comes to comfort settings. Even though I felt like the movement was a bit too slow for my taste, I still really enjoyed this mode. I want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video, and I want to hear from you. What games do you think would be perfect candidates for a third-person VR remaster? I'm having a blast with Super Stardust Ultra VR. If you've never played Super Stardust, this is the version to get. If you have played it before, I don't know if the invasion mode alone will be enough extra content for you. But if you're like me and you just want to experience everything you can in VR, go for it. You won't be disappointed.